Hello everybody, this is Ben for the Blue Monday podcast, and I am here belatedly with the December points prediction video in conjunction with ITFC Bible. ITFC Bible, great Twitter account, follow them at ITFC_Bible. Every month they put out a great poll which gets a lot of responses, asking Ipswich fans to predict the points total for the month, and it's a pretty good barometer. It's normally fairly accurate. Obviously there's been a couple of months where we actually exceeded expectation quite a lot, but normally it's fairly close. Now December is a bit of a basket case month because of the 6 games, and there's 3 very close together at the end. There's Wolves away on the 23rd, QPR at home on the 26th, and Derby at home on the 30th. So the big elephant in the room is that I have a distinct advantage here because I'm so late doing this video. The Ipswich have already played Forest, so in terms of my predictions, they're kind of a bit null and void. But what we're going to do, we'll go through the games, I'll say what I think is going to happen, and then we'll reveal what the average was in the ITFC Bible poll. So obviously the Forest game has happened. I think a lot of people would have predicted a win for that one. Obviously it came in as a win, but one big thing to look at during this month: 4 home games, 2 away games. So you would expect a decent return given the amount of home games. So Forest is done, 3 points in, not worth talking about. Next one is a more difficult one to call. Middlesbrough away. At the start of the season, most people without any form would have predicted a loss, I would have thought. But Middlesbrough in a pretty poor moment, maybe a good time to play them. So that's coming up this Saturday. I'd be hard pushed to predict a win, just on the basis that they were a Premier League team last year. What will be very interesting is Mick has obviously been without Garner and McGoldrick for a couple of games, and we're expecting Garner to be back, Chambers to be back. It's what he does with Garner and what he does with the team, given that Waghorn's played the last 2 games up front, actually not off to one side down the middle, and got a goal and 2 assists and looked very, very good. I'm going to predict a draw, which is going to give me a bit of latitude. There's a couple of games that are going to give me a bit of latitude. This is one, and the last one's going to be one as well. So I'm going to predict a draw there, so I'm up to 4 points so far for them. Reading at home, I'm going to predict a win. Anyone who watched the playoff final will know that Reading had an amazing season last year, but were pretty poor playoff finalists, I think. It wasn't the highest standard. They did amazing to get there, obviously, and they haven't replicated this season. They're much lower in the table, and given the way they play and the high levels of possession and playing out, maybe they need a bit of a tweak to their tactics, and it's been slightly sort of unsustainable. I've predicted a win at home against Reading. I think Ipswich are becoming quite powerful at home. I think they released the shackles a bit on the sort of attacking players. So I think they can beat Reading. I think both teams will score. Ipswich seem to be becoming that sort of team anyway. They've conceded 2 goals against Hull and Sheffield Wednesday and Villa and Forest as well. So lots of goals against, but lots of goals for also. I think second top scorers in the division at time of recording. So I've gone for a win against Reading. So I'm already up to 7 points for the month. Remember, I have the advantage. The Forest game has already happened. Probably the most unanimous one is Wolves away. Wolves are on fire at the moment. I think they're 6 wins on the trot. There will obviously be another 2 games, so they could potentially be 8 wins on the trot at this point. Obviously, all runs have to come to an end, so the longer you get into the run, the more pressure there is on the team to kind of complete that run and extend it. I think most people will have a Wolves win for that one. I've gone for a Wolves win, but I was at Derby and I've seen Ipswich line up 4-1, get behind the ball, nick a goal and shut them out. Maybe Wolves are a different kettle of fish to Derby, but Mick seems to have a few ways of playing this season, and that shutout at Derby was one of them. And Bart in goal is starting to look back to somewhat of his kind of imperious best as well. I've gone for a defeat, so I'm still on 7 points, but I'm saying I think Mick will do the 4-1-4-1 thing with Skews on his own in front of the back four, and there obviously is form for that being successful. Okay, going on to QPR on Boxing Day. I was at the QPR away game back in September, and yeah, it was pretty crappy. So I think Mick owes Holloway one. QPR very inconsistent. I've never understood Holloway, the manager. So I'm going to go for the victory there. I don't think his teams travel well, and I think they're a bit all over the place at the moment. So that's put me up to 10 points. So the other game that's given me a bit of latitude is the Derby game on the 30th of December. I think if Mick can take 3 points from Boro and Derby combined, so 1.5 per game from those two, he'll be happy. So I've put both as a draw, but I think he could win one of those and lose the other, and he'd be very happy if the other results went as I'm predicting. Derby weren't very good in the recent game. It never seems to work out well when you play a team close together like this is going to be. So we'll see how it pans out. I've gone for the draw. They've got a lot of expensive players. I've criticised before that they tend to buy expensive players on a downturn in their career rather than, you know, hungry players with something to prove, so to speak. But we'll see how it pans out. I've gone for the draw. They turned us over at Portman Road last season. So that gives me a total of 11. So 3 against Forest, 1 against Borough, 3 against Reading, nothing from Wolves, 3 against QPR and 1 against Derby. Although that said, obviously I would happily swap those 2 draws for a win and a defeat because that's 1 more point in total. But I've come out at 11 there, which would be fantastic. 11 I think comes out sort of over 1.7 per game, which is well good enough, as we know. So enough of what I think. The ITFC Bible average that came through was 10.385, which is also 1.7 per game and would be great. Obviously from 6 games, there's only one way that you can get 10 points, and that's 3 wins and a draw. So I'm thinking probably most people had defeats in the 2 away games and the 3 wins and a draw in the home games, or maybe one or the other. But I'm sure most people's 3 wins would have been Forest at home, Reading at home, QPR at home. I think Mick might specifically target those last 2 games. I think there's a bit of a sense, Wolves away, what is going to happen is that Ward will start, and I think it'll be fairly defensive. I think he'll put his runners in. Maybe Neidham or Downs will start as well. And then he'll load up the QPR and Derby games and play the same team twice and try and take 4 or 6 points in those last 2 games. I think everybody would be happy. 10.3, so 10 still gives you 1.66, which is above our form for the season. And we know that 1.6 is going to land you on 73, 74 points, which a lot of seasons is good enough for the playoffs. Something like 1.66, though, really is going to definitely get you in the playoffs. I would have thought that's going to be 75, 76 points, and I think you'd have a very good chance in there. So, to reiterate, I think Mick's going to target those last 2 home games there, QPR and Derby. I think he'll go very defensive against Wolves. Big game against Middlesbrough. He can really set the tone. If he can go to Middlesbrough and win while they're in a bad moment, then you look at the last 4 games and you can really kind of relax and almost tick off the Wolves game and say, well, look, let's go there, whatever happens, happens, and be a bit more relaxed knowing those 2 home games are coming. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments. I've tried to analyse what I think people have thought. I've given my own thoughts, so I'd be interested to hear yours in the comments. If you support any of the other teams, let me know why I'm right or I'm wrong, and play this to me again at the end of the month, and we'll see how close we were. Please subscribe to the Blue Monday podcast on Acast or Apple Podcasts. Give us a thumbs up on this video and a sub, and obviously a comment, and you can follow me on Twitter at Benjamin Bloom. I will be back. I'm not going to be at Middlesbrough on Saturday, so I will be back on the podcast next week, and my next match review will be after the Reading game the following Saturday. So we'll see you on YouTube then.